What up, guys? So today's video is from a comment that I got from one of you guys on YouTube where the person says no gi equals catch wrestling. All good though. I just like the idea that everything comes full circle and that Japan, China, and Brazil are not the nexus of all martial arts. And I also got a message from another person on YouTube where they were like, they asked, Chewy, is no gi, jiu-jitsu, and submission wrestling, is that just catch wrestling? So again, this must be a topic, so I figured we would chat about it, right? So is no gi Brazilian jiu-jitsu catch wrestling? No, right? So if you guys are short, if you have a short attention span from TikTok, there you go. No, it's not, right? They're very similar in some ways, but very, very different in others. When I look at all the different grappling arts and combat sports, right? When you think of catch, or if you think about the different types of wrestling, Greco, freestyle, and then the uniquely American version of folk style, you have judo, I don't know if I said that already, jiu-jitsu, both gi and no gi, you have sambo, you have all these different grappling arts, right? And you can look across cultures across the world. Nearly every culture has some form of wrestling, right? Some form of fighting. Some of them went more of a like striking and stuff like that, but nearly every culture has a fighting art, and a lot of times it's some sort of form of wrestling, right? When we look at that, or when I look at that, what ends up happening is the rules will dictate what gets used and how things get used. And the human body only moves in so many different ways, and so you will see techniques across multiple types of grappling get used completely differently because the rules dictate that, right? And so, like, for instance, you can look at folk style wrestling, which includes a lot of riding where, we would call it like a crab ride, or there's different types of rides, but basically you can think about when the person gets their hooks in, and there are different types of positions where they're on top of the person in turtle in jiu-jitsu, right? So when in folk style, when this is happening, you can look at it that way, and then you can take that stuff directly over to jiu-jitsu and adjust it for our rule set. Right, I did this when I came over to jiu-jitsu after doing high school wrestling, and I'm like, oh, this stuff like doing a switch, you got to tweak it a little bit, but I can use it a long sit, the different types of rides. I can use all this for jiu-jitsu, just have to tweak it a little bit. 3/4 Nelson, all that stuff is useful and effective, and we can use it differently in jiu-jitsu than we would, say, in wrestling. You can look at one of the Schultz brothers. He would use basically a kimura to counter takedowns, single legs. He'd let him get the leg and rip the shoulder. He eventually got banned from using the move because he was like ripping everybody's shoulders. But again, when you look across the board at all these different arts, you will see that, in my opinion, they're kind of like siblings, right? Where they look very similar, and there's a lot of similarities between them, but then there's a lot of differences, right? They all have their own sort of personality, their own culture, their own style. They maybe have some similarities, but they look very different. Any of you who have siblings would probably sort of understand that you might look close to your siblings, but very different in some ways. And so, for instance, when you look at catch is more of a, I think it was Josh Barnett who tagged it, right? Jiu-jitsu is the soft art. Catch is the brutal art or the violent art, which I don't really think of jiu-jitsu as the gentle art or the soft art, because I don't know what you guys think about it. It's not soft at all, right? It's a tough-ass sport. But catch is a brutal art in the sense that when you think of catch, the idea of catch as catch can means you get a submission and you can catch anything you want to in any way you can, right? So you can rip faces and grab people. I mean, they do some really weird like locks where they're ripping people's legs out to the side. They're just cranking the faces. Brutal, right? Whereas if you were to do that in a jiu-jitsu gym, they'd be like, hey bro, stop being an asshole, right? Because of the norms and the way that we operate. Also too, in a lot of cases with jiu-jitsu, we sort of tier the submissions. Like you get access to more submissions the more advanced you go. And in a expert jiu-jitsu setting, a no-gi, you pretty much, it could be like a catch wrestling match in the sense that you have all available submissions available to you. But the rub is that, again, when you look at jiu-jitsu, no-gi versus pretty much any of these other arts, you don't get to play off your back, right? So like in catch wrestling, sure, submissions are available, but you can't just like sit on your butt and play on your back and whatever else, because you'll get pinned. In judo, we're wearing a gi. Looks very similar in a lot of cases. You can even see people use the guard and go for submissions off their back. But if they were to get past, the person can be pinned. And so they typically go to turtle, right? They don't play side control escapes really, because they have to get up. And also too, they don't get a lot of time on the ground. Again, when you look at wrestling, just say folk style wrestling, a lot of rides and stuff, but there's no submissions. We have to pin people, but still a lot of useful techniques that we can use from one to the other. And I think what happens is with jiu-jitsu in the sense is that because of our free form nature, as far as we don't have one big governing body that tells you what the rules are going to be, we're all kind of doing it a little differently. different tournament settings, things of that nature. What ends up happening is because of this sort of openness to it, the jiu-jitsu practitioners and coaches will take stuff from all these different martial arts that they think could work, and they just throw them into the mix. And so it's very possible that we have a lot of stuff from catch. And if you go back to look at the early origins of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, there's some sort of a thing to be made from guys like, Carl Gotch and these guys teaching some of those guys, some of the Gracies and things of that nature. But again, I think that's just what martial artists do. We sort of blend things together. I think as a martial arts instructor and a martial artist myself, right? The goal is not to just be locked into this is my style. It's like, let me take a little bit of stuff from you, let me take stuff from you, and I'm going to make my own stew, right? I'm going to mix it up. And I think that that's why, again, you will see a lot of stuff coming over to jiu-jitsu because, we don't have a lot of regulations against things. Sometimes in different organizations, yes, but very many no. And so we can say, let me try these leg locks I learned from Sambo, or let me try this move I learned from catch. Let me do this throw I did from judo, right? You can mix things up because we have very free form rules where if you were to go to judo, the IJF, there's very strict rules about what you can do. As far as like, you don't get that much time on the ground and you get pinned in this position, and it's very different than jiu-jitsu. If you look at catch, again, we can't play off the back, so it changes a lot of things. So, just kind of just rambling here, but again, no, it's not the same thing. Very different. Similar in a lot of ways. A lot of things can transfer from one to the other, but very different. So anyways, that's just my ideas for you. Friend, I forgot to post your name out there, but I'm sure you'll probably see the video. But anyways, that's the idea, guys. I'll talk to you next time.